let's do this. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, good, good. So let's do some intros. My name is Jeremy Lee. I'm the host of Sports Cards Live. Sports Cards is a lifestyle. And we're here to talk about the hockey card hobby, featuring Connor Bedard.
I don't know who.
And as you all know, Connor Bedard is taking the hobby by storm. With me on the panel today, it's Thursday, November the 9th. We have Mr. Josh Madigan from the Hockey Cards Gong Show. Josh, welcome to the panel.
Hey, Jeremy, what's up, man?
Happy to be here at the Expo. Always happy to be here at the Expo. Best show in the world. To his immediate left, we have the very recognizable Mr. Coach Co. Brendan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, glad to sit on a panel with you yet again. And to his left, my long-term Expo booth mate, Mr. Amit Acharya. Amit?
Hello, hello. Good to be here.
Good to share the panel. And for 3.5 years now, we've been doing the pre-Expo show on Sports Cards Live, the post-Expo show on Sports Cards Live. But let's get into the topic at hand, the hockey cards hobby. And why don't we, one thing that I'm thinking about a lot right now, we're hearing a lot from a lot of our American counterparts that the hobby, basketball was king for so long, especially starting in 2019. And it's kind of done this. Now, football, all these quarterbacks has been up there, and then all the quarterbacks come out of the gate this season, and they might not be performing where people expected, so their values kind of come down. And one thing that I always look to is that hockey collectors are super passionate and loyal to the sport and to the hobby. And I kind of wonder what your guys' thoughts are as to, do you think that because of first of all, we have this whole country that puts hockey first. Do you think that because of that, we're going to see a more level marketplace because people love to collect and we're not a country of hobby sports card flippers? Of course it happens. Do you think that because of that, and we have an American on the panel here, Mr. Josh Madigan, but am I right in feeling that because we have a loyal collector base to the craft, that we will continue to see volume and fair prices on our cards? So let's start at the end with the non-American. Let's start with you, Amit, because you've been setting up here at this show for 20 years. What do you think about that?
So, based on my experience, and I think you can agree with this as well, is that the hobby collectors for hockey, they're very loyal. They're set collectors, they're patch collectors. They're not so much in the flipping range, especially even today. We're selling cards. People are like, I've been looking for a patch of my favorite player. So that's one point. The second point is on that trajectory that we saw, the basketball trajectory, hockey didn't go up as steep, so it doesn't. Am I having voice issues here?
A little louder if you can.
Can you all hear me in the crowd?
How about way in the back?
Way back there. I'm gonna try one more time. So here at the Expo, I've been doing this for 20 some odd years. Find most hockey collectors are set collectors or patch collectors or favorite player collectors, not really into the flipping aspect, but they are out there. They're definitely out there. I would say we haven't suffered what basketball has gone through recently because the hockey incline wasn't as steep, so it wasn't as much of a crash. So it's just leveling off. How about you guys?
I would tend to agree with you. A lot of the conversations I have with people who are predominantly in the basketball and football card market is that they almost don't understand the die-hard hockey collectors. Like, hockey collectors, they buy every box, they try to set collect. Like, there's just something that you don't see a lot when it comes to ultra-modern football and basketball, and those were the two sports essentially that had that meteoric rise during 2019, 2020, 2021. I mean, when you see that parabolic rise, it's kind of hard to sustain that stuff, especially because a lot of those ultra-modern players, the values of them were baked in trophies and, I mean, winning, right, essentially, is like these players were being projected as future GOATs, and they hadn't done anything at this point. Whereas that stuff still happens in hockey. Like, you see, a Matthew Nye's young gun right now. Obviously, there's a Toronto bias because we're in Toronto, and I mean, Toronto collectors tend to be a little bit boisterous. But so I mean, it's between like $60 and $80 Canadian. Probably not realistic for a guy who might be a career second or third liner. I mean, he's actually more expensive than William Nylander at this time, which doesn't really make much sense. But you still don't see those crazy inflated prices. Like, that is inflated, but not to the same extent as football and basketball. So, you know, to your point, I do think that hockey card collectors they're just solid collectors. I mean, I know for myself personally, I'm all about set collecting, especially, I mean, not ultra-modern stuff, but I will double back and go sift through boxes to find cards from sets that I'm looking to complete.
Yeah, you're typifying exactly what I was talking about, right? We like to collect, and we're not keeping we being hockey collectors, maybe Canadians, but hockey collectors, I think in general, we like to just enjoy the cards and maybe ignore the price fluctuations a little bit. Josh, you follow the hobby very closely. Hockey Cards Gong Show, best hockey cards podcast on the planet. Can you take the question? But what something that Brendan said that made me think was, we went through a bit of the basketball parabolic rise with Alexis Lafreniere when his young gun came out, and you know, if you can just take that spin a little bit in your response, how that happened and where it's at now, perhaps.
With Laffy?
Laffy.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you want, but you probably have some things in mind, but however you want to take it, but.
A big part of any sport collecting hobby is going to be prospecting, and certain players come into the league with hype, and Upper Deck put a lot of marketing power behind Lafreniere, but by the time you get into the league, at some point, the chase and value of a player transitions from hype and what we think they might become to actually what they produce on the ice, and you have to live up to those expectations, and that's what we're going to see with Connor Bedard as this season progresses as well. And to this point, Lafreniere has not lived up to that hype. I think he's like a 0.3 goals per game average, where typically to be a strong chase in the hobby, you need to be at least a half a goal per game, so a 40-plus goal scorer. And it's been tough. And I think, too, you have to separate the hobby from the NHL at times, because there's lots of players that are very good NHL players that it just doesn't translate into that hobby chase, where to be that – and there's the top tier of the hobby is not that big, right? You have McDavid, Matthews, Ovechkin, Crosby, and now maybe Jack Hughes. And so I
mean, Draisaitl might be in there, too.
Yeah, he's kind of flirting with that, but again, it's like there's very few spots that capture that large amount of attention, and that's just the danger of prospecting, is that and I think, just to briefly mention Bedard, is that the question in my mind is, are the expectations so high at this point, is that could he possibly even live up to that without there being sort of a natural come down in the hobby a little bit, or disappointment even to a little bit of it.
Well, I was about to ask, and I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. Have we seen a player that actually has lived up to the hype so far? You know, like from let's say 2020 until now, like the hockey card market, we haven't, the hockey hobby in general hasn't had a first overall pick actually pan out to be like a good player. You know,
that's
like we
very
have
true.
Owen Power, who, I mean, he's a good player, but he's not really notable in terms of like points or collecting. Slavkovsky's another one who just never really panned. I mean, he's still young, of course, but I'm saying that someone who's lived up to it almost instantaneously. I mean, we just finished talking about Laffy's another one. So, I mean, unless Bedard, and although he does look pretty good so far, but it's like, what does he need to do in order to live up to that potentially, $500, $600, $700 young gun that it's going to be? I mean, what do we think the prices are going to be?
Well, to add to that, one point is, you're talking about Laffy. If I'm not mistaken, Jason Robertson was in that rookie class, was he not?
So, and Kaprizov, and there's some other really
there were
good
some decent ones in there, not at the hype of Laffy, but there were some nice panouts.
We've had some surprises, right? Kaprizov came to mind even before you mentioned him. Jason Robertson, great surprise. But to your question, Brendan, not since McDavid and then Matthews has a number one pick fulfilled their potential. McDavid certainly did. He got hurt in his first or second game, but we've seen a lot of career since then. So you provided the segue to Bedard a few minutes ago. So let's go there a little bit more, because this show in Toronto every November, the Fall Expo, a lot of the vendors who are card shops, they kind of hang their hat on having a successful show. What's up, Chris? They hang their hat on having a successful show on selling Series 1 because of that #1 draft pick. This year, it's not happening. For whatever reason, Upper Deck could not get the Bedard Young Gun into Series 1. And what that does is it has the reverse effect of what we saw with Lafreniere in 2019, 2020, when his Young Gun came out. He hadn't really played a game yet, and because we had the slow start to the season, because of the pandemic, and his card was signed for $400 US. Now I think you can probably get one for $30. I don't know. I don't why. He's a non-issue in the hobby, but the vendors did really well. People who sold his cards did really well. Now here we are, 3 years later. Connor Bedard actually came out of the gate pretty good. He's showing wheels, he's showing skill, hockey sense, all this stuff. But there's no cards to buy of his. Well, there's very few cards to buy. So what he does between the beginning of the season and when his Young Gun Series 2 comes out, which is what, February, March, I guess?
Yeah.
It may not, hopefully he does pan out. But if he doesn't, what do you guys think that means to the hockey card hobby? Because I hear from Americans all the time, is this Connor Bedard thing real? Like what? Like is he? They ask me. Like I can tell. Like I'm a hockey scout, which I'm not. So, I guess two things, if you all could answer, is what do you think of Bedard's play so far, and what do you think it means to the hockey card hobby that his Young Gun, which drives a lot of the hobby, isn't going to be out until he's 6 months into his first season? Let's go reverse, Josh.
Well, I think he's been fine so far. The things that have stood out to me about his play are, well, first of all, he's very young, and so he's got an immature body and he's playing against very, very strong men. Essentially, he's small, and his team stinks. Let's just be honest. And so that doesn't help. But he has scored a few goals. He has one goal that was, we're seeing a lot of these goals that are called back this year due to offsides, and it was really not a significant part of the play. So he technically, I think, could be right at about that half a goal per game mark. And it's going to be a disappointment if he has 16 goals in February and he's just average? Or what if he has a Matty Beniers Calder type season where Beniers had 24 goals and 57 points last year? I don't think that is going to justify $500, $600, $700 raw Young Guns or $300 box prices, to be honest with you. But I do think, though, the saving grace is, if you took Bedard out, if he wasn't a rookie right now and you took him out of this class, it's going to be a pretty loaded, probably, Series 2. You have the potential of Logan Cooley. You have Adam Fantilli. Leo Carlson has looked really good. And you've got a number of other young rookies that are playing really well, too. And so I think, I don't know if to me, it's like, is it going to justify what the box prices are going to cost? That's the key question.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a bunch of Bedard's highlights at this point. I actually went to go see him when he was in Toronto. He was noticeable. He's small, but noticeable for sure. And you got to believe that as he continues to play and really fine-tune his game, that he really takes it to like another level. He looks like he definitely has game-breaking speed. And so now to your point, when it comes to, what happens when they finally release, I don't even know if it'll really matter, to be honest. Like, I just think that so many people are committed to these boxes, that are committed to him. Like, I feel like people will be way more patient when it comes to Connor Bedard than they probably have been with like any other prospect. I think that they've accepted that, whatever happens in the first season, and you don't really see that with a lot of players, right? Like, a lot of players don't get that saving grace.
Well, if I can jump in real quick and bring it back to Lafreniere, the hobby was super patient with him.
That's what I mean.
For 2 years,
yeah.
He was doing nothing on the ice, and we saw huge prices until it was really probably mid-season last year where collectively the hobby kind of threw his hands up and said, okay, I don't think it's going to happen for this guy.
I agree with you on that level. The other sorry to cut off.
No, go for it.
The other point of it is Chicago's doing a really good job insulating Bedard. They got, I think, two key veterans there. They're going to protect him. That's
Taylor
key.
Hall and Corey Perry.
Right. So you need that presence, and Perry's won Stanley Cups, so we've got that too. The other thing is his skill set is phenomenal. Like when I watch the game, I'm like, wow, like this kid's got talent. Now him being small, yes, it might knock against him, but this league is gearing more and more towards a skills league versus a goon league, and have done a pretty good job protecting the stars. Let's see if they can continue to do that.
All right, let's switch it up here for a second, because we're talking a lot about prospects right now, young players, and that's only a sliver of the hobby and what we're here at the Sport Card Expo for. I've been sitting in my booth since 9 a.m. and I've done a lot of deals, and not a single player who is younger than probably Joe Sakic that I've done a deal with. And there's a lot of people looking for other cards at the show. So in the NHL and in the hobby, there's a big push to grow the hobby south of the border. And Connor Bedard seems to be maybe that conduit that, Gary Bettman hasn't been able to do, or maybe Upper Deck's tentacles in the U.S. haven't been received as well, which I think they do a great job marketing. They have Hockey Day in Canada, Hockey Day in the United States. But if the hockey card hobby is going to grow in the U.S., is Connor Bedard the conduit for that? And if not, what might be? And I recognize that my kind of intro to this doesn't flow to where I'm at right now, but and again, we're going to start with you, Josh, because you're in the States. If Connor Bedard is not what people expect him to be, and yes, people have invested a lot, and they're committed to these cases of Upper Deck Series 2, but then they have to sell. They have to be bought, and they're going to buy and it might be Fantilli or Carlson or whomever. But is Bedard what Upper Deck and the NHL needed to grow the hobby in the U.S.?
I think he definitely has the potential to be. He's transcendent, right? So he has the ability to take people that are outside of the hobby and bring them into the hobby. I've gotten so many random text messages from people I grew up with or people I know that I never in a million years would I have thought they would have any interest in hockey cards, saying, okay, what product should I buy for Connor Bedard? And so I think that there is that in the biggest thing about the circumstance in Bedard that I think is going to provide the opportunity for growth is he's in the Central Time Zone, which is huge. We don't get to see Trevor Zegras ever. I'm in Minneapolis, and I'm not even on the East Coast. His games start after I go to bed, typically. And so he's an original six team in a great hockey market. From a hockey card perspective, the best patches of any hockey card. So all the stars are aligned for him to make a big splash. And you've also got the other thing that I think is going to be huge in maybe propelling him to as a face of the NHL to grow the hobby is a year prior to him is we kind of kicked back up the national TV coverage of the NHL in the United States, where you have the Paul Bissonnette and Gretzky on the TNT crew. You've got ESPN that's doing their thing. We had no national hockey games on TV ever. You had to go to like the turkey hunting channel to see an NHL game for the past 15 years. And so there was
Ocho?
Wild.
You think it's funny, but it's kind of true. Is that there was no opportunity to see someone like him, and I don't remember exactly, but I saw something to the effect of, like, I think his first 6 games or something like that were nationally televised in the U.S., which is I'm typically pretty critical of the NHL and how they market, but a very good move on their part.
I'm going to switch it up for you a bit, Brendan. You just came back from Florida. You're traveling the U.S. You're going to shows. You're rubbing shoulders with a lot of hobbyists lately. What are you seeing at the U.S. shows lately from a hockey perspective?
I mean, I've definitely seen more hockey over the last few months for sure. I mean, it's part of the reason why I keep going to shows in the States because you end up. I found like a Don Cherry on-card autograph in Florida, Like I was like, how did this even happen? You know, how did this get down here? Like I saw a great deal of, I saw Cole Caulfield, Young Guns. Stuff I haven't really ever experienced seeing in the United States. You know, to the point previously about Bedard and kind of transcending and being that push into the U.S. market, I think, yes, he needs to pan out, but I think that the hype that he has created, coupled with the fact that Connor McDavid has gotten injured, and Jack Hughes has played unbelievably, happens to be from the United States. Austin Matthews has been off to an absolutely torrid start when it comes to scoring goals. Both of those gentlemen are from the United States. I think that some of that hype that he's generated has resulted in people glomming onto, and now we're seeing all-time highs for like Jack Hughes cards, who happens to be American, right? So it's like his hype, which was generated by the NHL, which again, even they did the NHL Frozen Frenzy or whatever, the first time ever where they had all 32 teams playing in the same day. They're definitely making a push, and I think that even if he doesn't pan out to the fullest potential, I think that they've already grabbed people, because during that time in which people were hyping either the actual sport itself or hockey cards, American players were front and center in the sport.
Right.
It's another
I have a different question for you, but feel free
just to reply to
add
what
on
you
to
both
that.
of you have said. One good thing we've seen is from Upper Deck, the CHL product, the Bedard cards have been selling very well. And people are very excited about that, which I didn't see in years past for other prospects. So there is that too.
And as soon as his NHL cards come out, those will die. Same, we did see that with McDavid a little bit. So, but for my question for you, Meek, because you are in the trenches here at the Expo, you have been for years. I feel like a lot of people who may be watching the stream or consume this content later and aren't in Canada might think that what is selling up here is Connor McDavid, Wayne Gretzky, and Connor Bedard. And that might be Ovechkin. You know, that kind of might be it. What are you finding at your booth today? And we're only on day one, but maybe even think back to last Expo in May. What are you being asked for? Who's hot right now? If you can just give a high-level review of that.
So my selling is a bit different than most. I don't usually carry many of the Young Guns kind of things, but what's been carrying for me today has been cup patches. People have been all over the cup patches for various players. As long as the patches are fantastic, they go for it. Typical Young Guns, I did get asked for Matthews today. Did get asked for Marner. People were noodling on McDavid, but they weren't the only cards people are asking for. So that's a good sign, and that's kind of the staple of the things in here that I've seen.
And I mean, I said earlier, I've moved lots of cards, and they've all been, it's been like amazing vintage cards. Larry Robinson rookie, Rogie Vachon rookie. These are Hall of Famers. 3 of the Hall of Fame rookies from the 1912 C57 set: Clint Benedict, Eddie Girard. A Patrick Waugh rookie card. A Joe Sakic cup patch auto. I moved one of those. A cool Steve Yzerman insert from the 90s. So people are buying the whole spectrum of cards right now. I picked up a really cool Joe Thornton Atomic Refractor from 98, I think.
97 maybe?
97, 98.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, I love those cards. Let's wrap this up by asking you guys, is there anything in particular you're hoping to find? Hi, Jay-Z. Is there anything in particular you're hoping to find at the show here today? Like, Josh, did you come with a specific want, or are you just looking for something that catches your eye?
You already know.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm hunting for either a Ovechkin or Gretzky Glow Peachy.
Oh, I think I have one of each in my showcase,
You
don't
do.
I?
We'll talk later.
And they're in they're in beautiful tag slabs, or one of them's in a beautiful tag slab. Oh, look at our logos back there. I didn't even notice that.
Hey.
Nicely done. Thank you for your support, guys, over there. And, of
Yes.
course, to Mikey and Steve Menzie. How about you, Brandon? Anything you're really looking for today?
Yeah, I'm trying to complete the 2005 Upper Deck Young Gun set. And, I mean, I've got a few left. I'm trying to complete it in either a gem or a 9/both of those. So it's not just necessarily about acquiring the card, but acquiring a card in, like, condition that's good enough to grade, especially because it just doesn't make sense from a financial perspective to submit. I mean, a lot of those cards are like $1 or $2 or $3. And so sending that in to get like an 8 or a 7 would break my heart. So I'm being very, very picky on which Yan Denis I buy.
Well, and there's lots available of those. I've had people come up showing me their Gretzky rookies. What do I think of them today? Because I evaluate Gretzky rookies like it's like a full-time job almost for me. And people are showing me them and I say, like, these are great cards. You got a lot of options when it comes to cards, like a Gretzky rookie or a Crosby Young Gun or a Jan Denis Young Gun. So you can afford, especially here, you can afford to wait for the copy that speaks to you and that you love and you know you're going to be happy with. Amit, what about you? What do you got your eyes open for?
So I don't really have my eye on anything specific, but what I love doing is digging through boxes. So once I get a break from the table, I want to dig through boxes, and whatever catches my eye, I will go for. I'm always looking for a good deal, as most of us are. So whatever's the best deal, that's the best thing I'm looking for.
Right on. So before we have a nice crowd. Thank you guys for joining us. By the way, there are no more tickets available for the show tonight. But hey, Lapper, are any questions from the crowd? Like, let's just any. Now you know you guys got to give me a question. Hey, we got a question.
Neil.
Go. You in front. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter.
I'll repeat it when it's done so everyone can hear. Yeah, so the question is basically that how important is it for Connor Bedard to be playing in the playoffs within the first 3 or so years of his career for that to make an impact and help grow the hobby and really help deliver value to help actually like affirm the value for his cards that we know people are going to be paying in those first 3 years and probably mostly in the first 12 to 18 months. How important is it that he makes the playoffs? Let's go across this way again, Josh.
For the first 3 years, I don't think it is important. I think it's most important he scores goals, frankly, and he'll be 21 now. The interesting part of that is he gets to McDavid age. 26, 27. You look at the start the Oilers are having. If they continue like this for another week, they may not make the playoffs, and I think that's going to be disastrous to the McDavid market. So I think it's more of an issue 4 or 5 years from now than it is today. As long as he scores goals and produces the numbers, I think the chase will be there.
Brenda?
I would agree with you, but I do think that if he were to make the playoffs in his first few seasons, it would be just parabolic. Like if we look at the increase in even Connor McDavid's prices, although it's a little bit skewed because of everything that happened during the pandemic, and there's no denying that he was the focal point when it came to new money entering the hobby, or people who potentially weren't participating in hockey and decided to really go all in on a young player who could be the next one. But these deep cup runs that he's been on over the course of the last few seasons, I think they made it to the semifinals, the quarterfinals. He's actually been making the playoffs. You see an increase in his prices the deeper they go, obviously, right? So, especially when it comes to building accolades and building that war chest, when it comes to, is this guy going to hold up compared to some of the greats? I do think that. I mean, to your point, I don't know if it's really relevant in the first 3 years, but I think if he does, then you're going to start seeing just absolutely ridiculous numbers.
Amit?
I think it's an interesting question. I agree with both of you that it's not in the first 2 or 3 years he's got a bit of a pass, but I do worry that he's in a market like Chicago, who's been spoiled by Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. That's a lot to live up to, and that market will fuel card prices as well. So I'm interested to see how that pans out, and I hope it doesn't affect him too much.
I'm almost a hybrid. I think it would be I agree with Brendan. Making the playoffs would be great. Scoring in the playoffs would be even better. But Josh I think is right too. Scoring goals is really important. So, well, guys, any other critical questions out there? Or? No. All right. Well, thank you, Amit, Cardboard Culture, Brendan Coe, Coach Coe, and Josh Madigan of the Gong Show. I'm Jeremy Lee from Sports Cards Live. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.